in this video we're going to be looking at Olympus's flagship full frame camera. No, it's not a new release, don't be silly. This is a 50-year-old Olympus OM1n. Hi, Brian James here, that Micro Four Thirds guy once again with another video. I've got a good one today. A little bit of clickbait maybe on the title, but I'm sure you'll appreciate the humour behind it. Yes, Olympus have a full frame camera out, which is absolutely fabulous. The trouble is, it's nearly 50 years old. Welcome to my little hidden gem. I found this in the garage. This is an Olympus OM1n, and it's got significance to me because although I'd shot an SLR camera previously, it was my dad's. I had an old Zenit E, a big Russian thing. The first SLR camera I bought for myself was this one, bought in 1980, when already the model was a good few years old. It came out in 1972 at Photokina, and an amazing thing. It was tiny in comparison to the other cameras on the scene at the time, and this was very much a leading way to what we have in the way of the Micro Four Thirds cameras of today. Now, I bought this, as I say, brand new in 1980. Unfortunately, somebody decided they were going to damage it. When I still haven't found out to this day who did it, but they damaged the mirror inside. But this little Olympus OM1n is an amazing bit of kit. I have the winder, the winder 2, which goes on the bottom, which gave 3.5 frames per second of motor drive. Now, when you're talking about a maximum 36 exposure film, it doesn't take long to finish your film off. But this little gem I found in the garage, and I'd forgotten I had it, to tell you the truth. I thought it had gone out years ago. So I don't know the state of it. And the reason I don't know the state of it is it's a little bit grubby, but when I was checking, there's a film in it, and looking on the top it says exposure 31 is the next one, so it's a 36 exposure film. I've probably got about 5 shots left on it. Now, I think this film has probably been in here for a good 15 to 20 years minimum. I can't remember seeing the camera for the last 15 years, so this is going to be quite an interesting thing. Could be a total waste of space, could be really good, but what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to take a few photographs of that behind me, and I'm going to try and see if I can get anything out of it. And what's also interesting, I found another roll of film alongside it, a roll of Kodak film beside it. Now, I've got no idea what's on that. It's been exposed, it's been wound back in, but I'm going to send them both off, and if there's anything useful comes out, I'll let you see in a future video. So how am I going to use this? Well, I could switch the meter on and try and do the metering that way. Unfortunately, the battery's flat. I could buy a new battery, but these are mercury-based batteries in here, and a slightly different voltage to the current ones which would fit. So although I could put a new battery in, the metering still wouldn't be right. So what I'm going to do, I'll show you. Olympus, meet Olympus. This is my OMD EM1 camera, and what I've done with this is I've put a 25mm lens on, which is the equivalent of a full frame. When we say full frame, I mean 35mm, 50mm. This little darling here has a 50mm lens on the front, and I've got it set to f5.6. I'm going to set this one to f5.6, aperture priority. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use this to meter the scene behind. So let's see what we can do on this one. Switch the camera on. That's given me an 80th of a second. So in theory, if I set the speed on this, the speed ring, by the way, on this is fabulous. It's just around the corner. Can't do an 80th of a second. Let's see how close we can get it. What can I do for a 60th of a second? Let's wind this out. Okay, 60th of a second. And probably the first photograph that's been taken on this camera in 20 years. Again, just double checking, I'm going to try and do a vertical shot. Again, 60th of a second is ideal. So, let's try a vertical shot on this one. I can't do anything on that. By the way, the ISO on this was 200 film. I already had the ISO set on this one to 200. So in theory, it should have been the same. Now, I'm not totally sure as to what we're going to be able to see on this. Because, as I say, this film is finished. I've managed one shot. So it was probably a 30 exposure film, or a 32 exposure. But I certainly know that I can't wind it onto the next shot. So I'm going to have to wind it back. In the old days, we used to have to wind film back. Let's get rid of this OM1 and I'll show you how to do this. So we've got this. I've altered the camera a little bit so you can see further down. So we've got this camera. We've now got to the point where the film is tight. We can't wind it on anymore. We can't release the shutter. So we need to do something we never do on a digital camera now, and that's to wind the film back in. And that's taken a few seconds for me to remember how to do it. It's so long since I last shot with this. But there's a little winder, a little lever on the front there. If we turn that 90 degrees, that releases the winding mechanism. Flip out the top. So we've got that, turned it 90 degrees, flip out the top, and we can hopefully wind the film back in, a little bit on the tight side. And what we're doing, we can feel the film go back through again. So we slowly take the film, and what we're doing is winding back into the original cartridge. The cartridge is inside, and we can feel the tension. We're waiting for the little tension to release as the film decides that it's going to come off the spool at the far end. All the way back, hoping that the film actually stays intact. As I say, the film is probably 20 years old. We heard it come off the spool, it become very slack there, and we can shut that down. Now again, we're going to open the back of this camera probably for the first time in 20 years. It may be rusted up, there may be spiders in it, there may be all sorts of things. I've got no idea what's going to happen when I open this back door of the camera. To open it, we pull that up, that releases the cartridge as well, and an extra further pull should, but it's not doing it, release the door. Can we get the door to release? Well, there's our first problem. We can't get the door to release. This has been in here such a long time that the door is not releasing. Wow. There we are, a little bit extra pressure. I don't like putting lots of pressure onto things, onto mechanical things when they haven't been done for a while. There's a little bit of marking there. Open it up, and if you can see inside that, we now, I don't know if that's in focus or not, let's just touch the focus onto there. It should hopefully be in focus. We can see we've got 200 ASA film in, it's a 36 exposure, and that pulls out. Now there's a little bit of surface rust in there, but generally it's not too bad. Now for some of you, you've probably never actually seen a film camera inside. The younger generation probably haven't. So we've got a 36 exposure film, nicely sealed up. Again, we'll try not to leave them in the light too long, so I'm going to put that in my pocket, keep light off it. But we have a little bit of surface rust, not too bad actually. And if I carry on winding that to the end, when I wind, it turns a spool. There's a sprocket there, and it will pull the film out the camera. Now we have a shutter. So if I put this onto the bulb position, hopefully you'll be able to see, if I press the shutter release, you can see there that it's opened up, and you can see all the way through the lens. Release it, the shutter closes off again. You have a curtain on there. Now this camera in its day was amazing. It came out in 1972, as I say, and when it originally came out was the Olympus OM1. I beg your pardon, it was the Olympus. This camera is absolutely amazing. When it came out originally, it came out as the Olympus OM. Now that's not going to close anymore. I have a feeling a little bit of lubrication may be needed on this mechanism. That's better. Now this camera is amazing. Now this camera, when it came out in its day, was amazing. It came out, as I say, it was launched in 1972 at Photokina as a very, very small camera, and it was technically Olympus's second foray into 35mm format. Although there's contention about the first one if it was actually made by Olympus in the first place. The OM1 came out and revolutionised the market. It was half the size of those, but it was originally released as the Olympus M1. And as a Micro Four Thirds shooter now, there's an irony in this, because they changed to the OM1 because Leica's premier flagship range at the time was the M range, and Leica put in a complaint about it being called an M1 because it conflicted with theirs. Now, of course, in Micro Four Thirds speak, Leica are one of the main Micro Four Thirds suppliers for lenses with the Panasonic Lumix lenses. So it's come full circle. This was the camera which really got me into the idea of professional photography, though. In 1976 it would have been, I was doing some work with the Zenit in school. I was still in school as a sixth former, and I did a lot of work in a darkroom. I thoroughly enjoyed working in the darkroom in the school that we had, developing my own photographs. And there was a catalogue in there, an Olympus catalogue, and David Bailey, who a well-known photographer from the 60s and 70s and 80s, and an Olympus luminary at the time, was very much involved in the promotion of this particular camera. And I remember seeing this catalogue, being fascinated by all the bits and pieces, all the different lenses, and it really gave me a thirst for getting into photography. Now this was the basic kit Olympus. It came with the 50mm f1.8 lens. Zoom lenses in those days were incredibly expensive, so therefore all the standard lenses which you got were prime lens. So this is a little 50mm Zuiko f1.8 lens. The camera itself, as I say, now this is the OM1n model, and this was the one that allowed the motor drive to be fitted. And to do that, there's a little screw on the bottom which you take out, and the motor drive would actually turn a mechanism inside to turn the drive. You're limited, of course, on these to about 36 maximum exposures, although you could actually get things like extra film backs, bulk film backs, which would go on, because the whole back is removable on this and replaceable. And again, it was very, very adaptable. A real pro camera in its time. So was this a bit of clickbait? Of course it was. Why not? Because everybody else does a little bit of clickbait. But it is true. Olympus have a very, very good range of full frame cameras. Because what we classed as full frame is 35mm cameras, or 35mm equivalent cameras. And this is the daddy of them all. So from you Micro Four Thirds shooters out there, you're an awful lot big debt to this camera. And the fascinating thing, as you'll see, is it's almost identical in size to the EM1, the original EM1. So again, it shows in 50 years this was a real revolution. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with this. I'm going to certainly put a little bit of lubrication onto some of the catches and the joints and things. I think what I'll probably do is try and find some film and run it through. It's hard to find film these days, but there are a few outlets, and there's a few outlets to get it processed. I don't know what's going to happen with the film that's been in it. I don't know what's going to happen with the film that I found with it. Let's wait and see. But this could be a really interesting little foray back into the world of film. Now, I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. I will be doing a follow-up to let you know what happens to it. I really am interested myself, because this is something of my history and my early life. There is a problem on this camera, as I say. The mirror was broken, and because of that, focusing is a bit difficult. Now, in this particular instance, taking a picture of this folly just outside Carlisle, it's not a big problem, because I just focused on infinity, set the maximum focus, and again with an f8 depth of field, I'm not really going to have much in the way of focusing problems. But it should be interesting to see the results. I'll be honest, 20-odd-year-old film, I don't expect to get anything back, and certainly not from that last shot. The film itself is possibly even damaged with sitting in that position for so long. But if we can get the rest of it working, it's what I've described cameras as in the past. In fact, this is an ideal camera. It's a box with a lens on one end and a recording medium on the other with a shutter in front of it. Nothing more, nothing less. And the next thing to do is to buy a roll of film, put it through the camera and see what actually happens when we shoot with fresh film and get that done. Is it going to be a usable camera? I really hope so, because this means so much to me in my history as a photographer. If you've enjoyed watching this video, please subscribe for more. Press the subscribe button below. Don't forget to give a big thumbs up, because that helps YouTube to spread the word for us to be seen by more and more people. They use those in their algorithms to actually let people see when they come online that there's a video there. And if you have enjoyed it and you want to see more, press the little notification bell, because that will send you a notification message every time I upload a video to this channel. So until the next time, this is Brian James, the Micro Four Thirds guy, saying make your next photo your best photo. See you next time. Bye bye.